Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're strapping in for a really necessary journey into the world of small, mission-driven organizations.
hmm
If you're launching a nonprofit, or maybe you're running a small one that feels perpetually stuck in that startup phase, this deep dive is specifically for you.
Yeah.
We've pulled together some great expert resources that lay out the complete roadmap for sustainable growth and mission success.
And that idea of a roadmap is just so key. Our sources make it abundantly clear that growth doesn't happen by accident
Right.
or, just through goodwill. A specific intentional growth strategy, it's absolutely non-negotiable.
So it's not optional.
Not at all. It provides the necessary structure to establish standing and credibility, not just with big funders, but with your entire community, other nonprofits. It's the framework that moves you from simply surviving to actually thriving.
That distinction, surviving versus thriving, that's exactly what we want to focus on today. We're not just talking about getting more donations. We're talking about building an organization that can actually scale its impact without burning out its people. But before we unpack step one, a crucial instruction for you, the learner.
This is a good one.
Yeah. If you want to continue this learning journey, the sources point you toward a fantastic resource. It has educational videos, more comprehensive material on this topic. You should head over to smallnonprofitcourses.com.
Yeah, that platform has courses designed specifically for small and startup nonprofits. It's a great companion to what we're talking about right now.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Right.
We often assume that growth begins, when the money arrives.
All right, with the first big check.
Exactly. Maybe your first big fundraising gala or something.
Yeah.
But our sources, they strongly disagree. So where does growth truly begin?
It begins with definition, not with dollars.
Sure.
The fundamental starting point has to be well-formed vision and mission statements.
Okay.
If you don't know exactly what you do and why it matters, nobody else will, especially not a potential donor or a volunteer.
And what's interesting here is that it's not just about the words on paper, right? The sources really emphasize that these statements have to be embraced by everyone involved.
Everyone.
Why is that so critical? I mean, why can't the board just handle the mission statement?
Because that universality is what turns a document into a real guiding principle.
I see.
If the entire team, board, staff, volunteers doesn't explicitly get it and embrace the mission, then every decision becomes subjective.
Right. It's just someone's opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The mission defines, in unambiguous terms, the purpose and how the organization will make an impact. And if it's universally embraced, it serves to galvanize stakeholders, and it directs all the decisions that come after. It makes sure every ounce of energy is focused on the same thing.
So once that solid mission is in place, the strategic plan, the business plan, really it springs directly from that. How does a small nonprofit, which is usually resource-strapped, move from a beautiful mission statement to a working plan that doesn't just, sit on a shelf?
That's the challenge, right? For small nonprofits, developing and executing this plan is the key to directing that scarce energy toward activities that deliver the maximum impact. The plan is the steering mechanism.
The steering mechanism, I like that.
And it requires what our sources call a specific execution checklist.
Okay, so what's on that checklist?
First, prioritizing initiatives. And that means saying no to projects that don't directly align with the mission, no matter how cool they sound.
That's a hard one.
It's very hard. It also means deploying resources judiciously so, careful budgeting of money, and even more critically, time. And finally, identifying tangible milestones. These help steer the nonprofit through all the challenges and changes.
And these milestones aren't just like vague yearly goals.
No. They are quantifiable checkpoints.
That brings up a piece of jargon we saw, which seems really critical for turning strategy into action. It's a phased approach, macro, meso, and micro. Can you break that down for, say, a nonprofit founder?
Yeah, this is how you make the plan real. Macro planning is the highest level. You're looking 3 to 5 years out, defining huge organizational goals like expand to 2 new regions.
The big picture.
Exactly.
Oh,
The meso planning breaks that down, usually into quarterly or annual targets for departments, like what metrics does HR need to hit this quarter to support that expansion?
Okay, so it's getting more granular.
Right. And then micro planning is where the rubber meets the road. Daily or weekly tasks for individual staff members. By breaking it down this way, everyone can see exactly how their daily work contributes to that 5-year vision. It maintains that focus we talked about.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. From the what of the mission to the how of internal operations. And this is where it gets really interesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
Shifting the focus to internal efficiency. For these emerging organizations, time is probably their most expensive, non-renewable resource. So what practical internal shifts can drive efficiency?
You just hit on the most important factor, time. For emerging nonprofits, adopting good time management can make a massive difference to operational efficiency.
And it's not just about, like, fitting more into the day.
No, not at all. It's about safeguarding leaders and staff from systemic failures.
And the sources gave us three really tangible benefits of mastering this. The first one seemed to be about the work itself, right? Maintaining high efficiency in work streams.
Absolutely. But the other two are about human sustainability.
Okay.
So secondly, good time management minimizes burnout of leaders and staff. When you're lean, losing even one key person to exhaustion can be, well, catastrophic.
I've seen it happen.
We all have. And if processes are clearly defined, the pressure on individuals lessens. And third, and maybe most importantly, it ensures the team maintains focus on mission-critical work. It helps you avoid that shiny object syndrome that distracts so many startups.
So good time management is really risk management for your people.
That's a perfect way to put it, yes.
Speaking of people, let's go directly to human resources, to HR. Growth isn't just about documents and schedules. It is fundamentally about people.
Always.
If a small nonprofit has limited resources, how can they possibly compete with larger organizations for top talent?
That is the perpetual challenge. And growth depends so critically on recruiting the best staff and, just as important, keeping them.
So what's the strategy?
Well, to stay competitive, small nonprofits have to offer non-monetary and structural compensation that bigger places might overlook.
Like what?
Things like fostering a really diverse work environment, offering competitive benefits where they can, and, crucially, establishing clear paths for career advancement. Top talent wants to see a future in your organization, not just a job. This is essential human resources development.
So internal efficiency and strong HR practices, they attract better people. But what about keeping those people growing once they're on board? We saw a heavy emphasis on ongoing education. Why are simple things like workshops so crucial for growth, especially when money's tight?
Because they pay exponential returns.
How so?
They don't just reinforce existing knowledge about how to do the mission. They also introduce new techniques that can improve client service, save money, and reduce risk.
Can you give an example?
Sure. A simple workshop on new digital filing systems might save hundreds of staff hours a year. And for a small budget, that's a massive win. Education isn't a luxury. It's a proactive strategy to strengthen the organization against whatever's coming next.
That brings us perfectly to our third section. So what does this all mean for you, the learner, when you put it all together?
It means growth is definitely multifaceted.
Very.
It requires mastering a surprisingly broad toolkit. Let's dig into the specifics, moving away from high-level strategy and more into the legal and financial necessities.
Yeah, and we have to start with financial stability, which is so often just mistaken for fundraising.
Right. We just need more money.
Exactly. But our sources stress the need for multiple revenue streams. This is the difference between having one income source and truly building a revenue model for your small business that can actually withstand some volatility. And what happens when things go wrong?
You need a plan for that, too. If a nonprofit hits a fiscal challenge, they need to know the basics for managing a crisis, which means looking at resources on, like, nonprofit turnarounds. You have to plan for the worst-case scenario.
Beyond revenue, there are those necessary, but let's be honest, often terrifying legal and HR details.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed two specific areas mentioned that represent enormous risk for small organizations.
The legal stakes are very high. First, small nonprofits need to understand the basics of general liability insurance and why they need it.
What does it do?
It protects against the most common accidents and operational mishaps that could bankrupt a small organization overnight. It's not optional.
And the second point, which is arguably even higher risk, is misclassifying staff.
Absolutely critical. You must differentiate between paying staff as employees, that's a W-2, versus independent contractors, a 1099.
Why is that so important?
Because misclassifying an employee as a contractor might seem like a simple bookkeeping shortcut. But if the IRS decides that person should have been an employee, the nonprofit faces back taxes, penalties, interest. It can easily total tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
It's a foundational distinction that prevents major legal and financial disaster. It's why the sources point people to core references like the IRS resources for charities and nonprofits.
And on the planning side, we see a push for really granular systems, moving away from like heroic individual effort and toward reliable, repeatable systems?
Precisely. The goal is scalability. The sources talk about the need for established systems and processes for micro nonprofits and using defined tools like project management for small business.
Because if you rely on one person's memory,
You can't scale. Systematization means documenting every process so that any competent person can step in and execute it.
to tie that idea of systematization together, the sources made a really strong recommendation for a business book, The E-Myth by Michael Gruber, which seems a little counterintuitive for a nonprofit discussion.
I think that's one of the most valuable insights in the whole deep dive.
Why is that?
Because Gerber's work focuses on the difference between being a passionate technician, someone who loves doing the work, like providing direct client service.
Which is most nonprofit founders.
Right. And being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
someone who builds the systems that allow the work to be duplicated, improved, and scaled. Nonprofit founders often fall into that technician trap.
They just get stuck doing the work.
Exactly. The E-Myth forces them to work on the organization, not just in it. It is, and I'm not exaggerating, revolutionary for small nonprofit leaders.
I love that idea, especially when you connect it to other business concepts they recommended, like building a customer loyalty program.
Yeah.
For a nonprofit, that's not about buying things. It's about strategically engaging your stakeholders, donors, clients, volunteers to ensure they stick around.
And that's really the synthesis to this whole section. Success requires integrating all these diverse elements. You need the mission, the goal setting, the time management, strict operational planning, legal compliance, HR development.
All of it.
All of it. When they're integrated, these components build a kind of organizational immune system. It strengthens the nonprofit against adverse circumstances and allows for real, meaningful growth.
So this deep dive has really shown us that small nonprofit growth is a complete, defined, and surprisingly sophisticated roadmap.
Yeah.
It's built on specific processes and compliance, not just a hopeful plea for donations. It requires true professionalization.
Which leads perfectly to our final provocative thought for you to consider.
Okay, let's hear it.
Given the sheer number of processes we've talked about, from understanding liability insurance to adopting detailed time management, what single operational process currently being overlooked in your organization could have the biggest impact on reducing risk and saving money next year?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Think small, think compliance, think process.
That is the perfect question to mull over as you transition back to your daily work. And if you are ready to dive deeper into these topics, including educational videos and course material covering everything we discussed today, from HR strategies to financial turnarounds and those E-Myth concepts, make sure you go to smallnonprofitcourses.com. You'll find more information on small and startup nonprofits.
It's a great next step.
It really is. Thank you for joining us for this essential deep dive. We'll catch you next time.